Welcome to IBA 614 Global Marketing. My name is Dr. Sheena Boateng, and I'll be your lecturer for the course. Today is our first session, and in today's session, we will be looking at two main topics. The first one being an introduction to global marketing, which is generally to give us a foundation of what the course is about. And then we'll go straight into discussing the initiation of internationalization, which is the bedrock of global marketing, right? So these are the two main things we will be looking at in this session. Now, for every session, including this one, there are certain learning outcomes we hope to achieve by the end of the session. The first one being to be able to understand the concept of global marketing, so that if anyone asks you what global marketing is about, you should be able to confidently explain what it is and what it entails. And then we will also be able to identify the driving and restraining forces affecting global integration and market responsiveness. Global integration, because there's a lot of global integration that is going on, and it is affecting businesses both directly and indirectly. And therefore, as part of global marketing, we need to understand this concept of global integration and how it is influencing market responsiveness, which ultimately determines our practice of global marketing. And then we will also be able to discuss the reasons or motives why firms internationalize, as well as the barriers hindering the initiation of internationalization, because until you are able to actively initiate the process, there is no way of coming up with concrete strategies of being able to implement the process and see it through. So these are the general outcomes we hope to achieve by the end of this session. All right, so let's begin with an introduction to global marketing. So global marketing generally starts with the concept of going global. And that is because a lot of organizations have, over the past few decades, come to realize that it is not enough to be a local champion in your domestic confines, given that there is a whole world out there that with or without your intervention is slowly converging. And therefore, firms within these past few decades have realized that they have to make a move to be able to stay on top of issues and be abreast of the times and not be taken unawares by this fast converging world that we are in, which is changing the nature of business and marketing by consequence. So 4 decades ago, the phrase global marketing did not exist. However, like I said, in the past few decades, global marketing has become necessary because, like I said, the world is converging. Consumer needs and wants are converging. And as marketers, we need to be cognizant of this convergence to be able to come up with products and strategies to be able to market these products to these global consumers, to be able to ensure that our businesses can stay afloat, right? So its growing importance is one aspect of a sweeping transformation that has profoundly affected not just businesses, but also industries and nations, because bear in mind, this convergence is happening on a global level. And across the globe, we have various individuals from various countries that are governed by various rules and regulations and different leaders, all of which together influence the practice of global business and by extension, global marketing, right? So it is no longer an option for firms to decide whether or not to go global with their business or go global with their marketing, because currently it is viewed as a means of survival. If you do not want to stay comfortable in your domestic environment and have other foreign businesses come from international locations to come and kick you out of your domestic comfort zone, you need to make a move. Hence the need to go global. But once we understand the concept of going global, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what has this going global got to do with the regular marketing that we know and practice already in our domestic businesses and global marketing? So because of these two questions we have just asked, we first need to ask ourselves what global marketing is, because we already know what regular marketing is, which is defined more in general terms, don't we? So I put this question to the class very quickly. What is marketing? The regular marketing that we know and practice, what is it about? Anyone? There are no wrong answers, by the way. So just feel free. Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening, Elizabeth.
Okay, so marketing is, to my understanding, you anticipating, identifying, and satisfying customers' needs profitably.
Yeah, exactly. Tara, please go ahead.
I would also add to it that my understanding of marketing is letting people know what products you have available or what products or services that you have available for consumption.
Exactly. So thank you, Tara and Elizabeth, for those very resourceful contributions. And both of you are totally right. It's about anticipating and identifying and satisfying these needs that the various customer groups have and the various stakeholders have at a profit. However, you also need to be able to make these products and services that you have visible, because customers can only consume and purchase that which they are aware of. And it is with this understanding that we go into global marketing, where the firm goes a step further beyond the regular marketing that we know to affirm their commitment to coordinate all these activities of identifying and satisfying needs and making customers aware of these products and services that they have to offer across national boundaries in order to find and satisfy the needs of customers, not just within their domestic confines, but in various locations internationally across the world. And they intend to do this better than their competition, because remember we mentioned in the beginning that the globe is converging. So various businesses are doing the same thing, and they may even be doing it better than their competition. So you do not want to be the one left behind and be a sitting duck for other businesses to encroach into your space and come and take over in your domestic market. Hence, the reason why we say global marketing currently is a means of survival, because without making the move to market your products and services globally, you are just waiting for the competition to come over and kick you out, which no business wants. So that is generally the concept of global marketing. And now that we understand what global marketing is, what does it mean for the firm? When we say global marketing, it implies that the firm can do a number of things. The first one being to be able to develop a global marketing strategy. Because without knowing what you are going to do and how you are going to approach it, you're already setting yourself up for failure. So once we understand what global marketing is and the firm decides to engage in it, they need to go about developing a global marketing strategy, which should be based on the similarities and differences between markets. And we will emphasize on this a lot throughout the session, particularly in the lectures that have to do with the elements of the marketing mix and how they are portrayed or how they play out in different markets. Also, global marketing and its definition implies that firms need to exploit the knowledge of the headquarters, which is usually situated in the home country. And this is because the headquarters is the mother organization or the home organization from where all these strategies are developed and deployed. So as the strategies are developed and deployed in different markets, various amounts of knowledge are gathered and transferred back to this home organization. And depending on the knowledge that they gather and what they are able to learn as they go along, this knowledge that is gathered can be able to be redefined and redesigned to suit other markets depending on the conditions in these markets. And the only way this can be done is if the business actually goes through a cognitive learning process where they are actively trying to gather as much knowledge and information as possible as they can about all these different markets worldwide that they hope to operate in or that they have actually succeeded in getting into, which could lead to some form of adaptation to be able to ensure that their global marketing strategy suits the conditions in these new markets that they are hoping to enter. Also, the global marketing definition implies that firms can transfer knowledge and best practice. And like we said, exploiting the knowledge is just the first stage. Once you are able to exploit the knowledge you have gathered to develop unique strategies for specific markets, you can transfer knowledge from one market to the other depending on the level of similarity or differences between them. And the best practices that work and have a consistency of working well in different markets can also be repeated and replicated across other markets to ensure that the firm has a huge or large chance of achieving success in terms of their global marketing activities in these different worldwide locations. So these are the main implications of global marketing for the firm, right? So now that we have understood the concept of global marketing and its implications for the firm, we are going to look at what we refer to as the EPRG framework. Now, this EPRG framework comes about as a result of the concept of the home organization and the fact that the home organization is where the strategy and the plans for global marketing originate. Now, depending on the nature of the firm's response to global market opportunities, we can be able to determine the mindset or the beliefs of the home organization from which these strategies for responding to global market opportunities originate. And in classifying these beliefs, which influence how these responses are designed and deployed, we can be able to categorize the beliefs of a particular home organization using a framework referred to as the EPRG framework. And this EPRG is an acronym that represents E for ethnocentric, P for polycentric, R for regiocentric, and G for geocentric. So at any point in time, the beliefs of a home organization which influence their responses to global market opportunities can be categorized within one or more of these dimensions that we are identifying in terms of the EPRG framework. Now we are going to take each of these one after the other, and then we will break them down. Now, in terms of ethnocentric orientation, when we say a home organization has an ethnocentric orientation, the first thing it means is that they believe the home country is superior. So that means that every decision they take in relation to a foreign market is done with the superiority of the home market in perspective. So that means that all the decision-making and thought processes and strategization must be done in the home country and extended to foreign affiliates because the home country is superior and therefore everything that comes from there is superior. So you realize that for ethnocentric oriented organizations, we see some of them in our current context, everything must come from the home country, including stationery that is used in the office, furniture, interior decor. Everything must be brought from the home country as is to the foreign affiliates because they do not trust anything that is not from the home country. And all decision-making is taken from the home country and it trickles down to the affiliates. Hence, we observe that controls are highly centralized, given that the home country where the headquarters is has to make all the decisions, and then the affiliate in the various markets or foreign countries must just take the script and implement it as is written. So like I mentioned, because of the highly centralized amount of control, you realize that the level in which the organization operates and how it is designed, and even the technology implemented in their foreign locations or foreign affiliates in different countries are generally the same or even identical as that in the home country. So like I mentioned, the computers that are used, the software must be developed from the home country, stationery, everything must be designed, manufactured and branded from the home country and carried all the way from there to all the affiliates. And that is for ethnocentric orientation. So I put this question to the class. Based on what we have just said, any examples of ethnocentrically oriented firms in Ghana that you can speak of? Because there are a number of them. Yes, Kafui.
I would say it is First National Bank, where
Good.
everything is done through South Africa. The printing of T-shirts, the software that they use, everything is done through South Africa and then brought to the other nations.
Exactly. So thank you,
But,
Kafi. Yes, go ahead.
But I wanted to ask: is it possible for a company to adapt another company as its to adapt another country by placing its head office in the other country and doing everything through them?
Yes.
The example is Standard Chartered, where they have everything passing through Chennai. So
yes.
it confuses me a little. I don't know if it's done.
Yes, it's done. It's done, but then you realize that it is out of not an ethnocentric orientation, but perhaps one of the other orientations. So Kafi, let's do this. Let's go through all the different orientations and see if that structure you're talking about, we will be able to see it in any of the others.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good. Okay, so First National Bank is a very good example. Richard, please go ahead.
Madam, please, I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Please. Is it always the case that is the home country is superior? Because I see it as a deliberate strategy for them to grow their country, not necessarily them being superior. If you take the case of the Nigerian banks like UBA, they do everything from Nigeria. And I think it's just a deliberate attempt to grow their economy, not necessarily because it's superior to the other countries in which they operate.
Okay, so why would you want to grow your economy instead of growing another person's economy?
I want to grow my economy because maybe, let me say, my economy is probably not as developed as the country in which I'm operating in.
And what does that stem from? Have you heard of this tree saying before? Azepa wo fia oye. Have you heard
Or
it?
We want to take all the money back home, not necessarily.
Because we deserve it, don't we? Richard, you get it?
I get you.
Yeah, so they are putting their country first.
Okay.
Good, because they believe their country is what? Better.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Richard. Yes, Tara.
Okay, I also had a question. Is it always because they feel that their country is better, or sometimes maybe in the industry in which they're operating in is it's an industry that's heavily secure. So for security reasons, they would rather have things originating from the home country. Could that be an example? Because I can't quite think of a firm off the top of my head, but as you were explaining the ethnocentric orientation, the first kind of places or organizations that came to mind would be embassies, which typically get everything from their home country. But then I think one aspect of that is, yes, their home country is superior in that field. But then secondly, there's also the matter of security and privacy. So
as we will learn when we go along, we realize that all these orientations also interplay with other contextual issues. Like, for instance, in our next lecture, we will discuss something about the global marketing environment. And we will realize that certain orientations interact with certain political and socio-cultural ideologies, as well as economic ideologies, like Richard was saying. So you're perfectly right.
All right.
Because it's more of because it's more of a security thing, like you're saying. And it's also political, right?
Exactly.
It's a matter of national security.
Yes.
Yes, so you're very right, Tara.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, madam.
Yes, please.
Yes. Please, I want to find out whether there are some peculiar reasons why firms practice ethnocentric orientation.
One typical reason I can give you is about cultural orientation, which we will also learn about in our next session. Has anyone heard of Hofstede's cultural dimensions?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Have.
Cultural orientation has a huge role to play when it comes to ethnocentric orientation.
Yes. Yes.
So in that session, as we break it down, you will realize that the kind of orientation that the people have will determine to a large extent the kind of orientation that organizations from those countries have. So I will not want to jump the gun, Emmanuel. Let's get to that session and then break down the different types of cultural orientation. You realize that some kinds of orientations are prone to ethnocentrism. Is that okay, Emmanuel?
Yes, madam. I'm okay.
All right.
All
okay.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Julia.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Please,
Julia.
I want to find something out. There are some French companies in Ghana who tend to want to buy from companies anywhere here, but it has to be a product from France. Can that be compared to, or is that also ethnocentric orientation as well?
Yes, it's ethnocentric. You see the first point, it says what? The home country is what? Superior. So wherever they are buying from, like you just mentioned, it has to be from the home country, which in this case is where? France.
Okay.
All right. Nawaz, please go ahead.
Thank you, Doug. I just wanted to draw our attention back to the question you asked so that maybe people like us will appreciate whatever we are discussing. You said we should give examples of ethnocentric organizations in Ghana, but I think the whole class we veered off that. So I believe if maybe we could give more examples of that so that we will appreciate the ethnocentric orientation that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Nawaz. So Kapui gave us one. He mentioned FNB. I think, was it Richard? Was it Richard or Richmond?
Richard.
Richard also gave us one. He mentioned the Nigerian banks. Yeah, so Zenith is a very typical one. So any other example from anyone? So thank you, Richard and Kapui, for those examples. Any other example? I know there are various examples in different sectors. Does anyone have any other example? Emmanuel, your hand is still up, or it's from the previous one. Juliet, you as well. Or it's from the previous one.
Sorry, madam. Sorry, madam.
Okay.
I think it was for the previous one.
All right.
Sorry.
Juliet, I think yours is also from the previous one. Okay. Kafi, your hand is up. Or it's from the previous one. All right, Joshua Aplo, please go ahead.
Yes, madam. Okay, so mine is a question.
Yes, please.
I've realized that a country like South Africa,
yes,
most of their companies here in Ghana always go back to their country for supplies, like I think the first person said FNB. Yes. Could it be the country's orientation?
Yes, that's what we're talking about, the cultural dimensions. Certain countries have certain cultural orientations which translate into how they do everything, including how they do business. So depending on the country of origin of a particular organization, the cultural orientation of their country influences how they go about their business practices. So that explains why the South Africans do that. Joshua, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, please.
Okay. Jemima Lamte, please go ahead.
I will say Vodafone.
Okay.
They are from the UK, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and everything from that side, everything about them is from the UK.
Okay. So they import everything.
They bring in everything.
Interesting. That's another good example, right? So now we have 3 typical examples of such organization, and there's more. Tara, you're saying, would MTN be an example? Any MTN insider here to confirm? Any MTN insider to confirm? Yes, David, we can add the embassies. Okay, I take it there's no MTN insider. Otara, are you from MTN?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I was just
this year we don't have the telcos in the house. Last year I had a lot of telco representatives, so there was always a battle going on when it came to these things.
Yeah, it just seemed like they might be one, but I wasn't too sure. That's why I asked.
Yeah, Joshua is saying their procurement office is located in South Africa. So definitely everything will be procured at source.
Okay.
Because I receive a lot of souvenirs from them, and I realized that these are not souvenirs that are sourced in this country.
Okay, so I think it would be.
Yes, Tara, go ahead.
I said if their procurement office is located in South Africa, then chances are they're sourcing everything from that main hub out. So
exactly.
That could be it. And like you said, other factors would also play a part. But
exactly.
Yes, but primarily we could classify them as ethnocentrically oriented.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you too.
Okay, so there are two hands up, but I presume you've already spoken, so we can go on, right?
No, I just wanted to ask, with the fact that they believe that the mother company or the mother country is superior to all, does that including the hiring of staff, like the management staff?
It happens in some instances.
Okay.
You realize that with certain organizations, there are certain positions that they will not just fill with anybody, especially as you go higher up.
Yeah.
They would always insist that the CEO comes from the mother country, or certain key tactical heads come from the mother country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on. So beyond ethnocentric orientation, we can talk about polycentric or multi-domestic orientation, where the organization in question believes that each country is unique and therefore should be targeted differently, right? So this organization is more open to contextual differences, and they would like to adapt to the different conditions in the different locations that they find themselves in order to maximize their profits in each location. And you realize that when it comes to such polycentric orientations, the people in the West are known a lot for having polycentric business orientations, especially those from the United States. Mariaba, you wanted to say some churches. Yes, like Winners Chapel. Yes, you're right. Okay, so for the polycentric orientation, control is highly decentralized among the affiliates. And this stems back to their acceptance of the various contextual differences in the different markets that they operate. So they limit the amount of control that they have in their different affiliate markets, because they understand that as the home country or the headquarters in the home country, they will not have full knowledge of the situation in each of the contexts. So they like to leave a lot of the decision making to the heads in the affiliates who are more conversant with contextual issues to take the best decisions that will guarantee the highest level of profitability for the organization. And that is with the polycentric orientation. Now for the regiocentric orientation, the company views the markets or the world as consisting of different regions. So instead of looking at individual countries or individual geographic locations or markets, they would look at the world in terms of regional blocks. So you realize that a lot of countries in the world have, a lot of organizations, in the world have regional offices and regional plans. So you realize that they have the Middle Eastern arm, they have the European arm, the African arm, right? You see this a lot with a number of the FMCGs, like Nestle and Unilever, right? They deal with regions. So even in Africa, they have broken Africa down into different regions in which they operate. And here the firm in question tries to integrate and coordinate its marketing programs within these regions. So it makes it easier for them to serve these regions with specific tactics and strategies, rather than picking them apart and treating them as individual countries or markets. But they will not do business and strategize across regions. They will do it within regions. And as we have seen from the first bullets, there are certain regions that are very common when we look at the strategy of various firms that market globally, including the Middle East and Europe and Asia and Africa, right? So this is with the regiocentric orientation. And then finally, we can talk about the geocentric or the global orientation. And here the firm will choose not to divide the world into individual markets, not to think of their home country as superior, and not to divide it into regions, but rather see the entire world as a potential market. So here they will try to develop and integrate their global strategies to respond to the similarities and differences in world markets, rather than looking at it in terms of regions and countries and individual markets. So if they are looking at a particular consumer group, they are looking at this consumer group across the world as a potential market. And here, when you look at, there's a course I teach called Digital Marketing, where we try to look at various ways of segmenting the market, right? Which we will do a bit of here. But when it comes to digital marketing, we segment the market based on the level of technological penetration and how much the consumer groups are using technology. And currently, the foremost theory we've been using to do that is the generational theory, where we divide the consumers across the world into age groups, each group of which has a particular style and approach to the use of technology, depending on when they were born and when they were introduced to technology. So this is one of the means by which a geocentric orientation will lead a firm to categorize their customer base across the world. So in this case, they may offer a global product with local adaptation. So for instance, if they are targeting a particular age group, say the millennials, with a certain kind of product, they will offer it with unique adaptation to millennials in different countries, or perhaps millennials in different regions. However, the initial product will be designed to serve the global market. So this approach of designing an initial product that serves a particular global market with specific unique adaptations to suit individual contexts where necessary is referred to as glocalization. So you're thinking global, but you're ready to tweak whatever product or service you have to suit the unique idiosyncrasies of the different contexts in which you plan to sell this product or service. And that is with the geocentric global orientation. And with that, we've come to the end of the discussion of the EPRG framework. So is it Kafui? Kafui, do you see Stanchard's strategy here? Do you see it among any of these four? If not, then it could be that they chose to situate their headquarters in another market, not based on their orientation as defined by the EPRG framework, but perhaps for other reasons. Jemima, please go ahead.
I see Stanchard in the regiocentric orientation.
Good.
They are in regions. They are in regions. I think I discovered this thing when there was going to be a meeting for all bank managers.
Okay.
At my office then.
Okay.
And I was asked to invite them to the meeting. So in the process, I got to know of what Stanchart is. They had two managers in a particular branch. And when I questioned about it, I was told what each manager was supposed to do and where they relate to. I mean, the regions they relate to. So it's like if StanChart has about 5 branches within that region.
Yeah.
And every branch relates to a particular region in the world.
Good. That's a typical example, right? And you realize that some organizations will even go further to put together these different regions into zones. Has anyone heard of that categorization too before? So some organizations have zones. So when you look at an organization like Nestle Global, for instance, they have different zones with different names. So for instance, they have zone AMS for the Americas, right? Then they have zone MENA for Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Then they have zone AOA for Asia, Oceania, and Sub-Saharan Africa. So there are various organizations who are using different versions of these orientations to be able to ensure that they are able to deploy their marketing strategies across the globe. So Jemima, thank you very much for sharing, right? And giving us another example of organizations that use the dimensions as presented by the EPRG framework. So with that, we've come to the end of the discussion on the EPRG framework. Now, focusing on the last part of the framework, which talks about glocalization, we want to discuss global marketing strategy in terms of glocalization. No worries, Kafui, I totally understand. Okay, so when we talk about glocalization, it simply means thinking globally but acting locally. Now, this concept of thinking globally and acting locally is basically deployed through interdependence between the headquarters stationed in the home country and its subsidiaries. Now, this is because people at the headquarters realize that there are certain aspects of the strategy, including resources, that can be sourced from different locations at more competitive prices that will better serve the successful achievement of their strategy. So firms in the home country where the headquarters is located will usually liaise with their subsidiaries regarding the different functions of their value chain. And the value chain is basically the string of activities that the firm engages in converting raw material to finished products for sale to their customers in various markets. So they will usually liaise with their subsidiaries and through interdependence determine which of their value chain functions can be carried out in which locations at the highest level of cost effectiveness. So together they would look across the globe and say that, okay, perhaps because of the nature of this particular function of the value chain, this country is where it should be situated so that we can get it at a competitive price that would help boost our bottom line. So a typical example, this is what the value chain looks like. Like I said, it involves all the activities that are involved in converting raw material to finished products for sale to customers. Now, the value chain generally involves 2 levels of activities. We have the primary activities and the support activities. And the primary activities include everything from inbound logistics to operations, to outbound logistics, to marketing and sales, and then to service. And then the support activities include firm infrastructure, human resource management, technology development, and procurement. Now, upstream value activities involve the activities that involve converting the raw material, right, into the finished product. And downstream value activities involve moving the finished product to the final consumer. So you realize that depending on the kind of organization that you are dealing with and the strategy that they have, they will decide to situate any of these value chain functions in a specific location across the globe where it is most cost effective for them. So you realize that organizations of this nature are always looking for where they can make the most of their limited resources and where they can capitalize upon the highest level of competence. So when you look at certain organizations, you realize that everything is located in the home country, but they will decide to move one particular function to a different location where they feel it will serve them best. And Kafui, I think this is where your question comes in. Perhaps StanChart thought that looking at their value chain, the best place to situate their headquarters was in that foreign country that they are talking about. Juliet, good example is Apple. So Apple has specific locations where they do a number of things. For instance, a lot of their manufacturing of the parts of their Apple devices is done in China, right? Whereas a lot of the technology development and the software design is done in the United States. You can have certain organizations who can decide to locate their entire human resource in another country, or perhaps certain aspects of the human resource in another country. So going back to Standard Chartered Bank as an example, their entire customer service unit is located in which country? I think everybody here who is familiar with Standard Chartered will know. The customer service unit that responds to customer queries, India. Because looking at the level of cost effectiveness, that particular function of the value chain is best situated in that country. And I think it's working well for them, because if they decide to open the same customer center in Ghana here, it may be too costly, right? The same for other organizations. Some organizations will have all the functions of the company in one country and decide to just locate the operations alone in another country. So this is one key aspect of the concept of glocalization, where it's all about cost effectiveness and locating specific value chain functions in areas where they know they can achieve the highest level of competence. So glocalization is basically about the development and selling of products and services that are intended for the global market, but suited to particular local cultures and behaviors. And the only way to be able to do this is to be able to cut costs in any way, manner, and form that you can, while still achieving the highest level of competence, right? So with regards to the global marketing strategy, you are not just thinking about designing one product for the whole world, which is impossible, because based on the contextual differences that we know about, it will be impossible to have one product that will suit each and every need. And because of that, you realize that several firms that are marketing their products globally now are thinking of various forms of adaptation to be able to bring about some level of contextualization to create differentiation for their products and services in the different markets, to ensure that consumers in all these markets are satisfied. Hence the importance of this glocalization framework and why global marketing firms have to take this into consideration when developing their global marketing strategy. So now that you have appreciated the concept of glocalization, let's look at global integration and market responsiveness. Now, why global integration? Global integration is important because, like I mentioned, markets are now converging across the globe. So it is more about the similarities that consumers across these markets share rather than the differences that they have. And because of that, when developing a global marketing strategy, the firm needs to think about integrating their strategy based on the similarities across these markets and the unique individual differences, which are highly contextualized, So you don't start from the differences to the similarities, but rather you build upon the similarities and then you differentiate where necessary. Hence the concept of standardization and adaptation, which we will go into more detail later on during the course. Now, with global integration, it is also very important to look into the issue of market responsiveness, because given the nature of the global integration and the amount of similarities that are shared among consumers across markets, you need to be able to look at the unique opportunities that are being presented to you as a firm in your particular industry or sector as a result of this integration. And once you are able to identify the unique needs and wants that have been created across, you as a firm can decide which of these opportunities to respond to in the marketplace. So there's the need for an integrated global marketing approach where you are looking at the similarities across markets, which are creating certain needs and wants among consumers. And then target these specific markets across national borders, rather than looking at the cross-national differences between them. So you realize that the base product Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola across the world. And they have a basic product called Diet Cola. However, even though the basic formulation of Diet Cola is the same across the world, the name is different depending on the market that you find yourself in. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Good.
No.
And this is Tara. If I may also add, I know that
Yes.
based on the different cultural aspects of different areas, they
Good.
change it. Yes, they change the diet to maybe Coke Zero because diet may carry a negative connotation in certain areas of the world. So they change the name, but it's typically the same product.
Good. Thank you, Tara.
You're
so this
welcome.
is basically what we are talking about in terms of integration and market responsiveness, right? So now that we've appreciated the concept of global integration and market responsiveness, let's look at the drivers for global marketing. Why has global marketing all of a sudden become so fashionable? The first reason is multinational trade agreements. Countries are increasingly signing all manner of agreements and MOUs and addendums and getting themselves involved in all these multilateral trade agreements, which are accelerating the pace of global integration. Because the moment a certain number of countries come together and sign an agreement, they form a certain group or union who all of a sudden now have the same rules in terms of trade applying to all of them and the organizations that work within their countries. So for instance, in Europe, the expanding membership of the EU is lowering boundaries to trade within the region. However, with the introduction of the single currency, a lot of the countries within the EU realized that even though some were benefiting immensely, others were also going to suffer as a result of that unionization and the use of a single currency. So to begin with, a number of countries in the EU decided they did not want a part of this single currency. They chose to adhere to certain aspects of the agreement, but chose not to adhere to others. Which are these countries that chose not to use the euro? There are very few of them. Which are these countries? Great Britain was one of them.
The UK.
The UK was one, good. Which other one? Norway was one, right? Norway was one. They chose to stick with the Norwegian krona. Then we have the Danes, the Danish people. They also chose to stick with the Danish krona. Then we have the Swedes, the Swedish people. They also chose to stick with the Swedish krona.
Hungary as well.
Hungary as well. So you realize that these agreements exist in myriad forms. Poland, good. Such that depending on the agreement and which aspect of it a country chooses to adhere to, the terrain and the context of doing business in their country differs. And more recently, Britain has just exited from the European Union, and it's causing all manner of problems in terms of trade for British nationals who used to do a huge amount of their business within the EU. Let's bring it closer to home. Let's talk about Ghana. Ghana is part of a number of multilateral trade agreements, including the World Trade Organization, right? We are also beneficiaries of AGOA. We are members of ECOWAS. We are members of the AU. And more recently, we have signed on to the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, with the headquarters located where? Where's the headquarters of the AFCFTA?
In Ghana.
In Ghana, Accra, right? So all these agreements that are being signed back and forth are creating all manner of opportunities for different businesses, both within Ghana and outside Ghana, hence increasing the level of competitiveness, which is driving global marketing as we know it. We can also talk about converging market needs and wants, which is a direct product of the global village that we now live in. The world's population now shares commonly recognized cultural symbols. Their tastes and preferences are converging. We are getting to the point of what we refer to as cultural homogenization. So it means that products and brands that are were hitherto known to be popular in certain parts of the world have now become universalized, such that people all over the world are demanding the same kind of product in the same form. Now, the business consequence of this is that similar products and services can now be sold across markets to similar groups of customers, with a few contextual differences, like we just learned about in the Coca-Cola example that we gave. So markets are converging. Consumers' needs are becoming more and more similar. And that is driving global marketing, because if you are producing a lot and the domestic country cannot take it all, there are people in other parts of the world who are more than willing to consume the same item. So why not go global? Hence, this second driver of global marketing. Another key driver is the information revolution. Currently, because of the internet, communication is now cheaper and faster, such that there are businesses that are basically operating solely using internet-based technology. And with the rise of the concept of the virtual organization, an organization can be situated basically anywhere and everywhere and operate anywhere and everywhere at any time and sell to any customer anywhere at any time in different parts of the world. So you can be in Ghana here and you can shop in any part of the world and have it brought to you. Likewise, consumers in other parts of the world. And because of the new communication media that we have been able to create an increasing overlap in terms of the application of the various marketing tools that we have, particularly promotion and communication. Aside from the standardization of products based on the similarities of consumers, we can also standardize a lot of the communication that we put out there regarding our products and services across national boundaries. And because of the mobility of consumers, marketers now have the opportunity to be able to position their products in the mind of various consumers using specific techniques and strategies. Like I said, looking at specific age groups of consumers around the world, you realize that they have specific needs, specific wants, specific desires. A millennial in Ghana will most likely be almost identical to a millennial in another part of the world, say the United Kingdom, in terms of their tastes and preferences, taste in food, taste in music, taste in clothing, among other things, right? And this is a direct consequence of worldwide communication fueled by internet-based technologies. And these are all driving global marketing. There are also the issue of global cost drivers, where we can talk about issues of economies of scale and economies of scope. Like we said in relation to the value chain functions, organizations are looking to reduce costs, but not sacrifice on competence and quality. So where they can get the best and most cost-effective resources without sacrificing competence, which will directly impact their bottom line, they will do so. So it means that they have the freedom to outsource lower value activities, right? Which do not pose significant implications in terms of security, among others, to other developing or emerging countries where they can get it fulfilled at a lower cost. And this takes us back to the example of the call center of Standard Chartered Bank being situated in India, where we know labor costs are significantly low compared to Ghana, right? So as a result of this, value chains that were previously closed are now opening up, right? Such that local players can now source plug and play modular designs to big multinationals, or even develop their local brands themselves. And that is the problem that the whole world is having with China now. Because once China was a hub for lower value activities, but that hub created this competence among the Chinese where all of a sudden they had this treasure trove of knowledge from all these multinationals as a result of all the work they were doing due to the low labor cost in their country. And because of that, they are also able to create identical versions of these products and services that were hitherto sourced to them from other countries in other parts of the world. And right now, China is poised to take over the world as a global giant. And for the first time, the United States is worried. Please, are we all aware of that?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Very aware of that.
Yes, we created this monster ourselves. And now it's ready to take over the world. Right? So global cost drivers have been one of the key reasons for global marketing. And then finally, we can talk about leverage, right? So leverage here means some type of advantage that a company will enjoy because of its experience in more than one country. And here, by doing business internationally, like we mentioned, organizations get to learn and acquire a lot of knowledge about operating in different contexts. And they get to learn a lot of best practices that they can transfer and replicate across markets. So this gives them various kinds of leverage, including being able to transfer the experience they've learned from one market to the other, to influence their strategies in those markets, to enhance their levels of success. They're also able to benefit from scale economies, depending on how they go about deploying the functions of their value chain across different markets around the globe. They can also leverage based on resource utilization, because depending on how well they are able to cost effectively source their resources and utilize them and build competencies, they can be able to achieve high levels of efficiency and build capabilities in areas that their competitors will not be able to, which once again will fuel their expansion in business across the globe. Some organizations also have leverage in terms of global strategy. Coca-Cola has managed to remain the market leader in its category for several years. However, when it comes down to operation in certain markets, there are still to date some markets that Coca-Cola has not been able to penetrate. There are certain regions of the world where a competitor is the market leader. Are we aware of that?
I wasn't.
Okay, so in South America, for instance, Pepsi reigns supreme.
Oh, okay.
Coca-Cola has still not been able to take over the South American market.
I didn't know that.
So depending on experience, scale economies, resource utilization, global strategy, as well as setting individual competencies and capabilities that organizations build over time, they can have leverage, which can give them a leg up in certain markets.
Not to catch you, please.
Yes, is that Hilda?
Hello.
Is that Hilda?
Yes, this is Hilda.
Okay, Hilda, go ahead.
But I also learned that, yes, please, this is Hilda.
Please go ahead.
I also learned that Cuba doesn't really, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can.
I heard that Coke is not sold in Cuba as well.
Good.
Is it because of the same reason, or is it about the competition, or they don't go there at all?
There are several reasons. Remember, we talked about the fact that there are so many contextual issues and cultural issues and political issues that come into play. So
yes,
perhaps it could be one of these myriad reasons we have just mentioned. We may have to do research to find out. But that again proves our assertion that Coca-Cola, even though is in a lot of places and is the leader in several markets, has still not been able to penetrate certain markets, Cuba being one of them, right?
No.
So Hilda, thank you for adding that.
That's okay.
Elizabeth, please go ahead.
Yes, please. I also learned that in Coca-Cola, initially when they set up in India, they had to draw and then come back again because the Indian markets didn't accept them at first.
Good.
Because of their policy of secret formula kind of thing. Good. And Indians are very, very traditional. They are very circumspect as to what they take in. Good. So if you come to them saying that you are not ready to share whatever thing you are using for your beverage, then they were not interested. So they had to go back and re-strategize before the Indian market accepted them.
Exactly. Right. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that example as well. So this confirms what we are saying. that depending on the competencies that you have, the scale economies, the resources, the capabilities, the level of experience, your leverage in specific geographic markets will differ, right? Hence, one of the main reasons for global marketing, because you cannot have an edge everywhere. So you need to do your best in terms of strategy to take advantage of those markets where you know you have the opportunity to do so, right? And with that, we come to the end of the drivers. Thank you everyone for all the resourceful examples that you just shared. So moving on from the drivers, let's look at restraining forces. And one key restraining force to global marketing is management myopia and organizational culture. Some organizations are just not ready to step out of the confines of their geographic region. Some people will call it nearsightedness because they cannot see what we are talking about in terms of global convergence. How do you mean the whole world is coming together? They cannot see what we are talking about in terms of the world becoming a global village. How can the whole world become one village? And believe it or not, there are still CEOs and owners of companies and organizations who do not see the need to step out of their comfort zone to expand internationally or globally. And a lot of this sometimes comes from the ethnocentric orientation perspective, where they believe that they are comfortable in the home market, perhaps they are the market leader in the home market, and they do not want to make a move. Yes, Tara, they will be left behind sooner or later. They do not want to step out of their comfort zone, right? And because of that, they will not expand geographically. They are comfortable where they are. However, in companies where subsidiary management knows it all, or the headquarters management is all-knowing, there is no room for vision from the top.
Hello, Andy.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, madam, please, this is Michael.
Yes, Michael, please go ahead.
Get the documents. So I've sent it into your mail.
Pardon?
Yes, madam.
No, sorry. Michael, please, what documents are you referring to?
At Gmail.
Michael, please, what documents are you referring to?
I think he's speaking to someone else.
Sent, it was, hello?
Oh. Okay, I've muted him. I thought he was talking to me. I was very surprised. Okay, I think we are back now. Yeah, all right. So like I was saying, in the event that there's myopia, right? And then the heads or top management level individuals are nearsighted. They cannot see the vision. They cannot see where we are going. They cannot see how the future is going to look like enough to make a move to go international, right? And there are also companies where subsidiary management knows it all, or headquarters management is also all-knowing. So in the event that, Andrea, do you think he is talking to his boss? I believe so too. All right, so in the event that headquarters knows it all, there is no way that a subsidiary can come and give headquarters ideas or tell headquarters what to do. Sometimes it could even be from top level to lower level management. Perhaps those at the tactical and operational level have seen the trends and where things are going. However, because they are at operational and tactical level, they cannot push top management to make certain decisions in this regard, right? So a lot of global companies have learned to integrate their global vision with local market initiative and input, such that they need to appreciate that even though the local market is doing well, there is a need to look outside because soon they will be too big for the local market, or soon competitors from elsewhere will come into the local market and come and encroach on the local market and perhaps steal away some of their hard-earned market share. So rather than wait until that happens before they make a move, it is better to take the first steps to venture out, to secure that position that they have gained before it becomes too late to take action. Now, apart from management myopia, we can also talk about national controls. Every country protects their commercial interests. And sometimes certain countries even impose restrictions on homegrown organizations when they are expanding to foreign countries. And even with local organizations expanding to foreign countries, these foreign countries they expand into could also have their own rules based on how much of the income they earn from the country they can export back to their home country. I believe we are all aware of this.
Yes, we are. I think we spoke about it not too long ago in one of our other classes.
Exactly. Right? So all these are restraining forces, because to think of all the restrictions and the rules and the policies that are in place that may not allow them to do business as they were doing in their home country. Dave, you said MTN. We allowed MTN to swallow Ghana Telecom up. Dave, this thing you are saying can be explained from several angles. So I think we should, this is more of an allegation because we do not have concrete proof to say that we allowed it to happen. I'm sure there were several variables at play, right? So national controls play a key role in restraining organizations from going international, right? And these controls come from the rules and regulations based on the economic and trade agreements that these countries that want to expand in are signed onto. They can also come from specific policies that are imposed by the governments of these countries in terms of sometimes tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, right? And the non-tariff barriers can sometimes be even more stringent, depending on the sector that you are dealing with and the priorities of the government of that particular country. So restraining forces in terms of national controls are also very much a hindrance to global marketing. We can also talk about opposition to globalization. There are still a lot of people around the world who are very much opposed to the concept of global marketing and think of it as a threat. Because to a lot of people, they do not see the potential of global marketing of expanding economies and providing jobs and improving livelihoods. They see it as their hitherto closed and protected economies and countries being opened up and exposed to all the dangers of the developed world. Right? So, for instance, in Ghana here, when we talk about this controversial matter regarding the mining of bauxite in the Etiwa forest, you talk to those who are in favor of it and they are thinking about it in terms of globalization, opening up the economy, providing jobs, increasing, improving livelihoods, whereas others are also seeing it as an invitation to treat for Ghana's demise. And I know in this class, everybody will be on one of the sites I've just mentioned. Please, just by show of hands, who are those who are for the mining of bauxite in Etiwa? Those who are for. See? We have some people who are for. Right? And I'm sure there are more. Maybe they're just, exactly, Elizabeth is also there. Please, are you voting or you have questions to ask?
So I'm actually voting for.
We're voting.
Exactly, they are for. And there are so many others I have spoken to in some conversations we've had that are really open to it and the opportunities it's going to create for the citizens of the country. But there are also people who are vehemently against it and they are defending their stand to a T. Please, those who are against, can you show by hand? Because I know there are a lot of you in the system. Please, in this class, those who are against mining bauxite in Etiwa. See, Daniel is one. I'm sure there are more. Kafui is one. Richard is another. Right? And each group can justify their stance with facts and figures and information, right? From various sources that they have obtained. So this kind of opposition from those who are against translates into what we are discussing here in terms of globophobia. People are not really on board with all these opening up our economies to all these foreigners to come in with their investments and do all this business. They see it as a dilution of our culture, of our economy, of our way of life and doing things. And this is a huge restraining force when it comes to global marketing. Kafu, your hand is still up. Is it the vote or you had something to ask?
It's the vote. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Jemima, please go ahead.
I was wondering why the mining at Etiwa, because when these foreigners come here and they are mining, they don't care about our environment, because when you read around, you find out that there are methods of going about mining,
Yes.
especially the mining around the water bodies.
Yes.
And they have a way of handling it whereby chemicals will not get into the water bodies.
Yes.
But over here, we give them the opportunity to do the mining to an extent that they destroy our environment. So that is why some people will be vehemently against the mining, and so those who are for are thinking of the benefits that will come, but then they are not looking at the environment, which keeps us alive, especially the trees and the water bodies that we have, and even our farms in those areas. You see, it's against us. It comes against us, though it's going to fetch us something. There is no development after the mining, and that's the sad aspect of it, because when they finish destroying the place, they don't repair it. Like the cutting of the trees, they cut the trees and they don't plant them. So at the end of the day, we face the heat.
Exactly.
Which is not good for us.
Yeah. And Jemima, your sentiments are very valid, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, please come in.
So I'm coming in as a bit of a response to Jemima's comments. And as she said, there are ways that, first of all, the land belongs to Ghana. So we are the ones allowing them in. Secondly, you also mentioned that there are methods in which they can do the mining, which protects the water bodies. They have to take some precautions. So I believe that the onus is on us in terms of when we do give them permission to do that, we should have terms and conditions that come along with it. Like when you're done with this, or over the scope of how many years, you're supposed to plant trees back where you've cut down trees. You need to undertake the mining in a responsible manner. So it's up to us to hold them to those standards. But we can't say that because we will not hold them accountable to doing the right thing, we lose out on the benefits that we stand to gain. So I think it falls back on us to ensure that they're doing what's right, and we hold them accountable to that. So we win at the end of it.
Yeah, we don't
very valid argument, right? So you remember, like I said, both sides have very valid and justifiable arguments. Daniel, please come in. I'm sure you also have a perspective. Please share.
Good evening. Yes, Doc. I do. In fact, I agree with Jemima, and I agree with Tara. Personally, what I think is that Yenjebi, because our leaders are not responsible enough to allow this one to go away too. Look what we've done with gold mining, like Kwame Wiafe just said, and what we've done with oil. We have been shortchanged too much. Our leaders just signed bad deals, and we are left to suffer. Let's leave this one at least for maybe 50 years from now. Maybe we would have smarter leaders. Maybe we can take advantage of it. But if we use it now, it will be the same story. We'll just waste it. That's my personal position.
Right? Great. Yes, Tara. Very interesting. So like I said, each perspective is valid. Each person has good and valid points. And like Daniel said, it goes back to the leadership that we have. Will they listen to the people who say, okay, right now we are not ready for this. Let's hold on till the next about 30 to 40 to 50 years, where we will have figured more things out and have a better approach to handling this. Perhaps in those 50 years, we would have sorted out the gold mining issue like Kwame Wiafe raised, and perhaps solved Galamsey to some extent to learn some lessons to control this one. Or let's just stop it altogether because there's no way we can be able to tell the outcome or control its negative effects. It all goes back to the leadership, right? And this is a conversation that will not end today. So let's see what happens and see as we move forward how the government proceeds, right? But it's really an issue of national concern. So thank you everyone for sharing your sentiments. So that rounds up our discussion on the restraining forces, right? And these things we have talked about tend to limit global marketing. However, there are some organizations that, despite the restraining forces, are still brave enough to follow their ambitions and go ahead and initiate some form of international activity to set the ball rolling for their global marketing. So we move on to talk about the initiation of internationalization, which is the foundation for global marketing activity. So what is internationalization? Internationalization basically occurs when a firm expands its research and development, production, selling, and other business activities into international markets. So any of these, including other business activities that a firm decides to perform in international markets, determines their level of internationalization, right? So in many large firms, internationalization may occur in a continuous manner, such that they can undertake various stages of internationalization in different countries simultaneously at the same time. Or they could decide to do it a bit at a time in incremental steps over a period of time. This is all to sensitize us to the fact that internationalization can proceed either simultaneously, very speedily, or incrementally in a gradual manner. And this is in the case of large firms. However, when we talk about small and medium enterprises, because they do not have the resource endowments of the larger firms who have the capacity and the capability to do some of these huge international expansion activities simultaneously or incrementally, they would usually treat each stage or each venture in terms of internationalization as a distinct or individual activity. So they'll usually proceed with one stage at a time and try to perfect it before they move to another stage, largely because of their limitations when it comes to resources and competencies. So that is it for internationalization and how it tends to play out depending on whether you are dealing with a larger firm or a small and medium-sized enterprise. Now, there are fundamental reasons why firms will internationalize, right? And these can be grouped into two, namely proactive and reactive reasons. Now, for the proactive motives, these are the stimuli that make a firm independently of their own volition try to change their strategy, right? Sometimes to exploit some unique competence that they have identified or take advantage of some market opportunity that they have observed in another market or in several markets across the world. Whereas reactive motives are usually in response or reaction to certain pressures or threats that the organization would have observed in their marketplace or in their sector. So until something has happened that will trigger them to take some form of action, they would usually not be active in terms of taking advantage of international opportunity. They would usually passively adjust when something happens that takes them out of their comfort zone or leads them to feel threatened in their current position. And this usually takes place gradually because it is not of their own volition. They would like to take their time and do it gradually over an extended period of time. So those are the primary differences between proactive and reactive motives. And there are several examples of these. Examples of proactive motives include profit and growth goals. Like I said, a company may spot a huge opportunity in a market where they can target a certain customer group and obtain huge profit opportunities and grow. And because of that, they would go ahead and internationalize because of that opportunity that they have identified. It could also be internationalization as a result of a push from top management. Remember, we talked about the fact that one of the main restraining forces was the management myopia. However, if the management is not nearsighted and they can see the future and they spot an opportunity that they believe they need to take advantage of as soon as possible, it will constitute a proactive measure for them to internationalize. Others will also take advantage of technology competencies and unique products that they have that they believe they can sell in foreign markets to be able to achieve profit and growth. Others will also look at foreign market opportunities which are not available in their current location, be it in the home country where they are comfortable and have been operating for some years. So if they spot an opportunity in a foreign market, or perhaps get wind of some information about that market that constitutes growth potential, which they can take advantage of, some organizations will usually not waste time. They would quickly take advantage of it to benefit before other competitors encroach. Economies of scale is also another driver. If they are able to obtain some benefits through economies and expanding across certain markets, they would be able to do so to be able to obtain the long-term benefits that it will offer with regard to their resource endowments and the possibilities that these economies of scale present to them as an organization in the long term. Others will also expand based on tax benefits. Currently, certain companies choose to situate their headquarters in certain countries because of the tax rebates and benefits that they are offered. A lot of organizations took advantage of AGOA and the Ghana free zones to set up companies to export. So tax benefits are another huge proactive reason why firms would want to internationalize. But besides the proactive reasons that push firms to internationalize on their own volition, others also have no choice than to react because of, first, competitive pressures. If the competition is doing something that is threatening their current position in the market, they will be forced to react in order to maintain their position or secure what little position they have left that has not been encroached on by the competition. And they will also be forced to react primarily because the domestic market, has just become too small and saturated. They are producing too much that the domestic market cannot consume it all. And therefore, they need to look elsewhere to be able to dispose of the excess that they have produced. And therefore, they would look outside for new markets that could potentially take the excess production, which the small, saturated domestic market can no longer absorb. Overproduction and excess capacity could also lead an organization to look elsewhere. Because if they are overproducing and they have excess capacity, they cannot allow the extra capacity to go waste. It will be better to produce with the excess capacity, leave some in the domestic market, and send the remainder elsewhere to other markets where they could earn income or revenue, rather than deciding not to produce at all and not use the excess capacity that they have, which would not benefit them in the long run. Elizabeth, please go ahead.
Yes, please. My problem with the excess capacity here is, should the firm always be producing at full capacity? Because even if you move to another country where you are actually able to produce at full capacity, don't you think you'd still need a spare capacity in terms of in periods where there are increased demands and all that? So regardless whether the market is small or big, you still have to get some spare capacity, and that should not be a reason why you should actually move to a different country. That's my opinion.
Okay, Elizabeth, I get where you're coming from. But when we talk about excess capacity here, for instance, this goes down to operations management and management science. You know, they have extra capacity, which they set aside in case of excessive demand.
Yes.
Provision is made for that. However, you have some organizations that, by nature of the sheer size of their factory and its production capacity, even if they set aside the amount for extra capacity, they still have excess.
Okay.
Good. So it depends on the scenario that we are looking at, the type of organization and the level of capacity at which they are producing.
Okay.
Because you realize that some organizations have so much capacity that they'll produce for themselves and sometimes even take contracts to produce for others because of the sheer capacity that they have.
Okay.
Good. So like we said in the beginning, there are a number of factors that determine this. So you're right. We shouldn't just say because they have excess capacity, they should go international. They need to look at other factors. But what we are saying is that this is one of the primary drivers which could initiate the conversation of going international. Elizabeth, I hope that makes sense.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. Another motive we can talk about is unsolicited foreign orders. And this has led a lot of organizations to think about establishing international operations in foreign markets. Sometimes you are a local organization, you're just producing domestically, and all of a sudden you start getting orders from foreign countries. And depending on the volume and timing with which these orders come in, you will realize that instead of producing in your domestic market and shipping to this foreign country, it will be more cost effective to actually set up a subsidiary in this market or get a local representative in that market to distribute your product in that market for you. Hence, we are saying unsolicited foreign orders could lead to a reactive motive to internationalize, because on your own, you wouldn't have made that decision. But orders keep coming from this foreign market, which you cannot afford to pass up. So it would lead you to react in terms of taking the necessary steps to ensure that you have some form of presence in the market to satisfy the needs of these new customers. Jemima, please go ahead.
From what you just said, I observed something.
Yes.
Not too long ago, I was having a conversation with a lady who works with a factory that produces some of these, a factory that produces the wigs that we wear here in Ghana.
Yes, please.
And in the process, she mentioned that there are certain kinds of products that they make, but you don't find them on our Ghanaian market because those products are meant for the Nigerian market.
Mm-hmm.
The Nigerians come down to Ghana to place orders, like you just said,
Yes.
foreign market opportunities.
Yes,
they
please.
come in here to place their orders, and
Yes,
it's produced for them, and they take
Yes,
them
please.
away.
Yes,
And I
please.
think some people also come from Ivory Coast
Yes,
to do the
please.
same. But then I realize that the company, though it's in Ghana, has a representative in Togo and not in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And Nigeria go past Togo and they come to Ghana to buy.
Good.
And Ghanaians don't buy the Ghanaian market. On the Ghanaian market, when they want to place orders for some particular product,
Mm-hmm.
they have to go to Togo to place the order there, and they will bring it from Togo to Ghana. Meanwhile, the factory is here. And I haven't understood this, and that's why I interrupted. In fact,
I think we have to do a research to find out the why.
I don't understand the reason why they don't have a representative in Nigeria, but it's in Togo. And Ghanaians buy from Togo, and Nigerians bypass the Togo representative and come to Ghana to buy.
It could be for several reasons.
I don't get it.
Could it be that it is easier for Nigerians to travel to Accra than to travel to Togo? Could it be because of this point they are talking about here in terms of psychological distance? Togolese don't speak English as their foremost language, but Ghanaians do.
Okay.
So in terms of psychological distance, Nigeria is closer to Ghana.
Okay. It could be the language barrier.
Good.
Okay. That's fine. That makes sense.
Good. But for the Ghana to Togo one, that one I can't understand. There could be another reason. Perhaps if we do a bit of a recognizance study, we'll be able to find out the reason why, right? But there are myriad reasons why this could be taking place.
All right.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of global marketing, right? So by the time you finish this, you become strategists because you have to think about all these variables. Kwame, please go ahead. Thank you, Jemima, for making that contribution. Yes, Kwame.
I wanted to make a contribution to what Jemima just spoke about.
Yes, please.
An example, there was this diaper manufacturing company one time. I was trying to get a business there. And what I got to realize was that they had other distributors that they had built a strong relationship with.
Okay.
Although the factory was situated in one of the regions in Ghana.
Yeah.
They had the distributor also in Accra, and some of them were also in the Punahaf.
Okay.
Some other part, but they were willing to give it to those distributors for me to also go and buy from them rather than coming to their factory to buy from them. What was the reason? They had built a relationship, and they also have a threshold of an amount which they also buy from them. So if you are not ready to come into that cartel, willing to give that amount, you don't belong. They are not, in respect for wherever you are, they won't sell to you.
Good.
So that could also be one of the reasons.
Exactly. Right. So that is the essence of all these courses you are taking in terms of managing international trade, global marketing, and all that. It's to sensitize your mind to start thinking in regards to all these different variables that influence the business situation, especially when it comes to international business. Because at any point in time, there are so many variables that could be at play, right? Just as we have learned from the examples that Jemima and Kwame just gave. So thank you very much for sharing. Finally, with regards to the reactive motives, we can talk about to extend the sale of seasonal products. And this one, we see it all the time. The Western products are seasonal. So once the season passes and no one in that market needs it anymore, they need to find another place to send it to. And they usually bring it to the markets where it is viable for that period of time. In Ghana here, we have summer all year round. Over there, they don't. So you realize that a lot of the summer clothes, after the season has ended, end up in Ghana here as storagettes or as, what do they call them? Is it as secondhand clothes? Or in, Elizabeth, you said? Force, thank you, right? All because they want to extend the sale of these seasonal products. And currently, people in Ghana have made a business out of it. So there are people in Ghana here who look out for the high street shops in the UK and then the department stores in the US. And once the season is over, they go to the shops and they buy up all the leftover stock and they ship it to Ghana and they sell to the boutique owners and they sell to the online retailers, and they made huge business out of it. But this is a typical example of extending the sale of seasonal products, right? So these are the two main sets of internationalization motives that we can have, being proactive and reactive. Now, even though you may have good intentions and you want to go international, there are certain barriers to internationalization which we need to be cognizant of. And this comes in three forms. The first type we can talk about are tariff barriers, which are very common, especially to those who do a lot of import and export business. Then we have non-tariff barriers, again, which are quite common to those who do import and export business. And then we have private barriers. Now, the tariff barriers have to do with the customs duties or the taxes that they place on products and services as they move across borders, right? And these can be classified in different forms depending on the direction of movement of these items, the purpose for which the items are being moved, the length, the rate, and then the distribution point at which these items are dispersed. And that is for tariff barriers, which we will break down momentarily. Then for non-tariff barriers, these are generally costly restrictions and prohibitions, and sometimes conditions, which are often imposed by governments and policymakers to restrict the movement of certain products and services across markets. Now, unlike tariffs, they are not straightforward and obvious, but they will often come in the form of regulation, right? Or certain structures that make the whole process rigid and try to limit the ability of exporters or firms to be able to move their products and services across borders as easily as they used to, right? However, both of them are induced restrictions introduced mainly by governments, even though one is a direct duty or payment, and then the other one is not as direct and straightforward. And then the private barriers generally have to do with the business's own practices or arrangements that it has with its affiliate firms within the networks that it belongs. So starting from tariff barriers, we can talk about tariff barriers based on the direction of product movement. We have barriers imposed on imports right? We have import tariffs and export tariffs. Depending on what you are importing and where you are importing it from, certain tariffs will apply. Depending on what you are exporting and where you are exporting it to, certain tariffs will apply. The same for the purpose of the tariff. Some tariffs are introduced as a protective measure, often to protect certain industries or sectors within the country that you are importing to. And then others are basically to raise revenue, which a lot of countries around the world take advantage of. Currently, Tunisia is one of the countries where it is the most expensive to import a car. And they heavily tax that industry because they realize the people in the country have a taste for foreign vehicles. And they saw it as an opportunity to earn money, right? So the revenue tariffs are huge. India is also another country that has a lot of tariffs, some protective, some revenue-based, right? Then we can also talk of length of time. Some tariffs are basically surcharges and they are simply temporary, while others are countervailing tariffs that are against subsidies. So anti-subsidy tariffs are basically those tariffs that are imposed on goods that are being imported from countries where there are subsidies on the production and manufacture of those goods. So to counter the subsidy that has been imposed in the other country, to make it cheaper for manufacturers there to produce and they come and dump in a certain country, that country will introduce an anti-subsidy or a countervailing tariff to counter the subsidy that has been given to that manufacturer, making it cheap for him to manufacture and import into our country. Then we have the duties that are imposed on imports, which are generally permanent. Everyone here who has bought a car has either directly or indirectly paid some kind of duty on it, right? So that is it for length of time tariffs. Then we can talk about tariffs based on the rates that are applied. So there are specific tariffs that are at a fixed rate. No matter what you do, you are paying a certain percentage on that particular product or service. Others are also ad valorem, based on the value of the item that you are importing. And then others are combined. They are a combination of both the specific and then the ad valorem tariff, depending on, once again, the kind of product or service that you are importing. Then we can talk about the distribution point. Some tariffs are charged at the distributor level, while other tariffs are passed on to the consumer. So at the distribution level, tariffs that are charged may include single stage tax, whereas at the consumption level, certain tariffs or taxes that are passed on to the consumer include the value added tax, which a lot of us in Ghana are paying and have been paying. Right now, we are even paying COVID tax. Yes, Tara. It seems we all have the same thing in mind. We are paying COVID tax now. So these are examples.
I'm not happy about that.
At all. Fuel prices have just gone up. It seems living in Ghana gets more expensive by the day.
Yes, and when you even made the example with Tunisia, when you made the example with Tunisia and the import, the luxury, well, not the luxury tax, but then the tax on imported vehicles, I thought of Ghana as well, because I know at a point they were trying to even calculate the tax based on the size of your engine and all of that. And it wasn't a very straightforward thought through thing, but hey, it is what it is. Ghanaians like their luxury cars too. So that's another place for them to make some money as they see fit.
Exactly. Right? Oh, this is the Ghana we live in now.
I don't get it. You see,
yes, Jemima.
The whole thing is, I just don't get it. As a government, a sitting government, you are there, you're making your money through taxes and other revenues, and people are working so hard for their fortune to have a little comfort for themselves, and their family. And you come from, you just calculate what somebody is doing, and then you put a very huge tax on it just to make the person uncomfortable.
Looking at how you can benefit.
With this COVID tax, I don't understand it, because we didn't ask COVID to surface in the first place. It came from somewhere. We all didn't expect it. And it brought, it became everything came to a standstill. It is not our fault for businesses to collapse and for people to die and people to fall sick and all that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're taxing us for it out of no fault of ours. Whatever monies were contributed, most of us didn't enjoy it. So what's this?
Marianne says hashtag fix the country. I didn't know there were proponents of that hashtag in this class. So I'm still here to understand where it's coming from. It seems everybody has an opinion, but Jemima, that's why the hashtag has come. We need to fix the country. All right, now the question that remains unanswered is who is going to do the fixing? Is it us or the government?
They must find the money. The monies that if they still have those monies, they should release it, because I mean, why COVID tax? I mean, the whole world is looking at us and they'll laugh at us.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound well at all. In fact, when the budget was read and I heard COVID tax, I was like, what? This one there.
Welcome to Ghana.
I tell you.
Okay, thank you for sharing, guys. So that is for the tariff barriers. Next, we can talk about the non-tariff barriers, which we said were usually in the form of various kinds of regulation and then structural bottlenecks. So the first one is about government participation in trade, right? So they will often give administrative guidance, involve themselves in procurement and state trading, right? So government will usually buy from certain organizations in certain sectors. They usually give subsidies to certain sectors and sometimes involve themselves actively in the dealings of certain sectors. And the telecommunication sector is currently the poster child for this particular issue of government participation, right? Government last year wanted to restrict the market share of MTN being the largest telecom. And now government has bought one of the major players in the industry. I heard for $1. Please, is it true or it was an exaggeration? For Ghana media.
What we're all hearing. So we see the paperwork ourselves. We just have to do what we heard.
Yeah. So these are typical examples of government participation. So this will usually change the dynamic in the industry because government is actively interfering. They are actively doing certain things to influence how the industry grows and how it is run, right? Another thing we can talk about is customs and entry procedures. And here we see it all the time at our ports. The way the documents are classified, the way items are valued, the goalpost always keeps changing depending on who is importing and what they are importing, the documentation, the licensing and permits, the inspections, the regulations, they keep changing depending on where the item is coming from, who is importing it, among others. We can also talk about product requirements, which we see a lot with developed countries, where they have huge product standards, how the packaging must be, how the labeling must be, the level of testing that it must have, even the ingredients, being the product specifications, what components it contains. All of these have to meet certain standards as determined by the government of the day. We can also talk about import quotas, being direct restrictions placed on how much can be imported and how much can be exported. Then we can also talk about financial control. In 2014, we saw government actively trying to control exchange of the US dollar in an attempt to rescue its decline, the decline of the Ghana cedi, in relation to the dollar. These are all examples of financial controls that governments will usually impose to be able to take certain action in respect of international trade. And then finally, we can talk about private barriers, and these are usually at the firm level. What will stop a firm from internationalizing? They may not have enough money, or they may not have enough knowledge about the market to be able to know where to even start with this internationalization. They may not also have enough connections internationally, because to be able to venture into a foreign market, you need to have good, reliable partners in these markets to do so. They may also lack export commitment. Top management may not be fully committed to embarking on this internationalization drive, and that could limit the business's ability to do so. There could also be a lack of capital to finance this expansion into the foreign market, or a lack of productive capacity to be able to dedicate to these foreign markets. They could also lack foreign channels of distribution, which flows directly from the lack of foreign market connections, which will help them to make the internationalization process somewhat smooth in terms of selling their products and services in these foreign markets. And with that, we come to the end of today's session, which has given us an introduction to global marketing and the process of initiation of internationalization and what could hamper and what could encourage the process, right? So this is the end of session 1.